He just does what you tell him.
Good morning, everybody. I've just woken up and discovered a frog in my tent. Yes. Hello, frog. Not staying.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are the Mighty Guru Yoghourt. Your health. Imagine then, if you will, February 1976. Me, 14 years old, a weak, feeble, terrified teenager, surrounded by thugs at a grammar school, picked on, bullied every single day. Yes, that was me. Every moment was a moment of utter fear. That was my childhood, pretty much, from as early as I can remember. My father decided it was a good idea for me and my older brother, 10.5 months older than me, we were in the same year at school, to be going to a grammar school. We'd passed our 11 pluses with flying colours, and I suppose in his fucked up way he wanted what he thought was the best thing for us. Really bad move. We came from a very poor background. My father was a burnt out, drug-addled, hippie-ass motherfucker who could never keep a job for more than a day or two. A man who, funnily enough, I can laugh about it, went to prison for robbing the cash register at a petrol station he'd got a night shift job at. Yeah. And so there was never any money, there was never enough food, and I was perpetually skinny, weak and feeble, but very bookish. What I can say for the father is that he was very concerned about us being able to read well and to read widely, and indeed I did. Anyway, the reason that this particular mountain behind me, which as I've already mentioned is called Tryfan, is so important and has become over the decades a part of the fabric of my existence, I do not exaggerate, is this. At the grammar school that we went to, there was something called the Field Club. Yes, the Field Club. I was aware of its existence. I was aware of the kinds of things that the Field Club did. The ruggerbuggers, as I call them, would go out in the school minibus every month, and generally they would come to North Wales. It was within easy striking distance of Birmingham. They would generally stay at the, I think it's now a youth hostel, Ogwyn Cottage, just down the valley here. And they would go and climb mountains, or they'd go kayaking or canoeing or whatever. Anyway, it was not my thing at all. I wanted to be in the library reading books, and that's pretty much what I did. I was also, I should mention, the only vegetarian in a school of 1,500 pupils, and that was just another reason to beat me up at playtime. Yes, I had to explain to the dinner ladies what it meant to be a vegetarian, and they were aghast. What do you mean you don't eat meat? Oh, what's wrong with you? This is a long time ago, remember. There were less than 1 million vegetarians in the UK at that point. So anyway, in order for the Field Club trips to happen, they had to have 18 pupils in the minibus. Otherwise, they weren't allowed to do it. It's the middle of February. This is when we had, in the UK, really, really harsh winters. I was press ganged by the rugger buggers and the members of the field club into going along on this trip to Tryfan here, just to make up the numbers. I had no idea what was about to happen. Imagine this, 18 teenagers turn up at the foot of this mountain here and are told that they are going to be climbing the north ridge of Tryfan. Now, pretty much the skyline that you can see from this angle is the north ridge. It's a part of the mountain that I know now very intimately. But I was a weak and feeble 14-year-old getting dragged up a mountain. I was hopelessly under-equipped. Bear in mind that outdoor pursuits activities in these days, the 1970s, were not just under-regulated, they weren't regulated at all. I was wearing a pair of what I would now call fashion boots, because it was the only pair of boots that I had. I had an anorak, I had a woolly jumper and a pair of worn-out jeans. Of course, the rugger buggers, coming as they did from wealthy, affluent, middle-class backgrounds, had all the right gear. Yes. Anyway, the teachers responsible, I remember them very, very well. Dave Hebden, a PE teacher. Now, I have an IQ of 181, the equivalent of 181 PE teachers. Was the leader of the expedition. I stole that joke from Red Dwarf, by the way. The other one was a geography teacher called Pete Anstey, and he was actually quite a seasoned mountaineer. He'd been to the Alps, he'd been even to the Himalayas. So he really ought to have known better than to take a weak and feeble 14-year-old, hopelessly ill-equipped, up the north ridge of Tryfan in the middle of winter. The mountain was white. There was about 4 foot of snow on the mountain. It had been there for weeks. It was frozen solid. Nobody, incidentally, in the group of kids has crampons, right? Absolutely fucking stupid and irresponsible. Anyway, we got about halfway up the ridge. At this point, I was just frozen and could not get warm. I was being thrown around in the snow, snowballed, tortured and bullied by the rugger buggers in full sight of the PE teacher and the geography teacher. What did they do? They laughed about it. Well, they then proceeded to get us lost. The weather was closing in, there was a lot of mist, and we eventually were brought back down. The two teachers got us lost on the way back down, and I now know exactly which bit of the mountain here we had to be lowered off with a rope to get back down safely. When we got back down to the valley, I was suffering, I now know, from advanced hypothermia. What happened? We got taken back to the cottage down the road, and I was thrown and humiliated publicly into a warm bath to thaw out. Yes, shocking. Wouldn't happen these days, but it did happen then. We drove back to Birmingham on the Sunday evening. I was off school for a month, recovering from this nonsense. After a couple of weeks, I was well enough to be able to get out of bed and to walk around the corner to the public library, my favourite place to be. While I was recovering, it started to occur to me that that particular episode was in fact the most intense experience I'd ever had up until that point. I happened to walk past a shelf of books devoted to mountaineering. And because I would in those days read pretty much anything, so long as it maintained my interest, I started reading books about mountaineering, yes, including The Hard Years, written by Joe Brown, local, well, he was a local climber here, he's dead now. Books by Don Willans, and books on the theory and practice of mountaineering. And I became absolutely, overwhelmingly fascinated by the whole thing. When I finally went back to school a month later, I signed up to join the field club, and then went on with open eyes and, I won't say a small amount of knowledge of mountaineering, and became incredibly enthusiastic about the whole thing. It was at that point, my friends, that my life changed forever. I got stronger, I got fitter. The bullying didn't go away, but it didn't seem to hurt so much. I was a late developer anyway, but I started at the age of 15 developing muscles. I then discovered martial arts as well and started doing judo lessons. I started doing karate lessons, and it all took off from there. The next 10 years saw me become completely and utterly obsessed with climbing. Not just mountaineering, but rock climbing as well. And that has driven my life for 40 years now. That's why I'm not a skinny, feeble, wretched person any longer. So it's kind of ironic that I could have died on this mountain, but I've been back countless times. I cannot remember how many times I've climbed this mountain. I've walked up it, I've run up it, I've climbed a lot of the rock faces, both on the east face here and also on the other side. And I just love it. This mountain is absolutely my favourite mountain ever. So now you know. Stop recording. Well, as the light begins to fade, this will be the end of this little film. I've bared what passes for my soul, or would do if I had one. And I hope you've enjoyed this little film. I'm now going to get some sleep and have an early start in the morning, ride back home to Cumbria and start preparing some dinner for the Murgatroyd and her granddaughter when they get back home, probably at about 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Yes, so that'll be it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this little film. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, well, now might be the perfect time. I'll put you a little thing up here just to make it easy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.